And welcome to Jewish Wisdom for Coping with a Pandemic. And it is a really good thing that we have thousands of years of Jewish wisdom to call upon, because this pandemic is going on far longer than I think any of us thought. I mean, maybe in theory, I thought, okay, yeah, this could go on a while, but yeah, this is really going on for quite some time. We started in March, and we kept on going. So here we are. Some people have been here since the beginning, and others have come and gone. But whenever you have joined us, I'm so thankful that you joined us today. We are going to be focusing on the soul trait of truth for the second week. And we shall begin, as we always do, with a short meditation to become present and to create a sacred and safe space for ourselves. So please get comfortable and close your eyes. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through your nose and holding, and exhaling through your mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on the next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, you're listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, friends, we're going to do things a little bit differently today. I don't have a central kind of quote for us to begin discussing. We're going to jump right into the text when I bring up my slides. But before that, I wanted to check in and see, does anyone have, this is our second week of truth. And last week we talked about the judgment of truth. Did anyone have any insights or experiences in the past week that might relate to what we went over?
I guess I struggle with why people lie.
Yeah, that is.
What's in it for them? I know that may be out of the purview of what you're doing, but that's something I struggle with.
Well, one of the slides that we'll look at later, there's classic teaching about sort of the 3 reasons why people commit a falsehood. I think, from a Mussar perspective, as soon as we start wondering about other people, we sort of begin to run into a boundary. And I think it is a really, really just, in my perspective, it's really, really important that we understand that people lie. Like when I was in the corporate world, I was like, oh yeah, we're all cooperating, we're all on the same team. And, after like a couple of, ever larger knives were stuck in my back, I finally realized that not everybody thinks that way, and that was something which was really hard for me to kind of accept. So I think understanding that not everyone is playing by the same set of rules is, I think, a really important thing to understand. And then bringing it back to ourselves and our own journey, where do we need to set boundaries? Are we always truthful, or where do we sometimes shade the truth? So those are some of the questions that I ask. Yeah, Harry.
We're also dealing in the world of alternative facts and perceptions of truth. It's really gotten messy today, and that's the fear that we've been going through. Is our culture is more accepting of untruths or alternative facts, and that's the battle going on.
Yeah, that's another unfortunate reality, and a reality that we need to understand. We don't have to like it, but we shouldn't close our eyes to it. Frank?
Yeah, it's. I think the it's real tricky because why do we deceive? And in different, lighter or a little less or a little bit more. And what are our motivations? And if we don't sometimes understand our own motivations, how can we really understand somebody else's? So I think, so I could see this, this truth being, kind of a challenge. We have a neighbor, and we needed to increase our utility. We need more income. We have a kind of a small co-op, and he's a renter, and we're owners. And I realized that but he's been living here for a long time, so he feels like he's part of us, but he's not. And so the question is, he asked me some really fair questions, but I think I chose not to respond to him because the truth is not necessarily will be helpful. So we're going to have a conversation tomorrow, and I'm going to be more listening than saying things. Sometimes the truth is not necessarily helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. You've made a number of wonderful points. And one of the things that I was, it's like, well, I don't even know my own motivation. So how can I understand someone else's? And it reminds me of one of our Mussar assumptions, that we all share these soul traits. It's not like anyone is completely lacking in the truth. They may be very out of balance to one direction or another, and sort of being really thoughtful and mindful about what truth we're going to share with other people, or what perspectives we're going to share, I think is a very important part of the journey. I think that's, yes, Joanne.
Yeah, I was going to say in relation to, and now I forget if it was the last person or the one before, that I think what I found from last week, when you redirected me to it was a similar question about other people lying, and that, it's like, what's my truth and what don't I tell myself, or do I tell myself? I think we really have to start with that, each person. Because probably we don't tell ourselves the truth about everything, and I think it's a good place to start. And then, I wrote a little bit tonight about, I used to be really dumb in interpersonal things and career-wise, and then I got smarter as time got on, and so I'm trying not to look back so much, because there ain't nothing I can do about it, one of the mistakes I made in the past. And just trying to go forward, with using some of these traits like order and enthusiasm reaching out to people and, all the different good traits and work on those. And I've worked very hard to try to overcome tendencies to procrastinate and be messy. And, so I really try to clean up after myself, but it's really hard. And, I feel kind of envious when I see someone in the laundry room who's folding their laundry so perfectly. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I do, but I'm better than I used to be. Like my cooking is better than it used to be. And my connections to people is better than it used to be. I'm more proactive. So.
Well, thank you, Joy. And amen to that. Better than I used to. What that is kind of, that sums up what we strive for, because we are who we are and we can get better. But, that's the right, and that I think is a great segue into our soul trait of truth. So some of the, all right, I'll keep that around. So may I have a volunteer to read this first bullet, please? I can't actually see any of you, so if someone just wants to unmute and read.
Okay, truth is the soul trait of inclusive, respectful regard, both for what is apparent and what remains undetected, for both what is obvious as well as that which may elude us or be hidden from us. Rabbi Carol Glass, the Mussar Torah commentary. Should I read the second as well, Greg?
No, let's start with that first one, Lainey. Thank you. Okay, so here we are. We're talking about what is obvious and what may elude us or what may be hidden for us. So how, does anyone see how this might apply to something in their own life or the way that they look at the world? What does this add to our discussion of truth that we started last week? Yeah, Janos.
I'm thinking, I'm not worried about things I know. I know that I know that. But then I know what I don't know. That also doesn't worry me. But what worries me that I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Janos. I was talking with a friend of mine from school today, and we were taking our first class in Talmud, and I've read Talmud before, and I've really liked it and I've respected it, but I feel like I was only barely scratching the surface. I mean, even from just 6 or 8 weeks of this class, just understanding like the whole motivation and structure of people behind what they wrote and kind of what was going on. Like we can look at it at many different levels. It's like, oh, wow, this is a really interesting, who's wise, one who learns from every person. Okay, there's a lot to be gleaned from that. But understanding like the whole context and the whole who wrote it and why did they write it and what were they getting at and, why this is the 70th argument in a 500-step case, so, and I had no idea any of that was there. I really didn't. So, and we both felt that way. I mean, we're both second-year rabbinical students, and we're like, okay, there's a lot more going on here. So yeah, I did not know what I did not know. What do you think she's talking about, and like what is hidden from us? I think the context here was she was talking a little bit about the mystical tradition, where we can look kind of on a mystical level about sort of hidden truths. So we can look at an interpersonal level about, how well do we really know the people around us? But where might this fit in for you and your worldview?
Well, I just know that, there's a big thing that's hidden from us is like, if you believe in God, why God, made this person be sick and die, or why this baby was born with this condition, or, those kind of things about we can't know what, God's agenda was for anybody, even if we believe there's a mission for every soul, kind of, which I tend to think is so. That's something we just can't know, so it's kind of frustrating, but we still have to, I guess, try to, like I said, carry on, do our best, and
Yeah, some really difficult things happen that are kind of inexplicable in this world, and whether we're wondering, where, if we believe that God has handed these things, what was God thinking about? And for people who have, don't share that worldview, I suspect many of us can relate to this. Why did this happen? That's one of the big challenges. Carrie, did I see your hand up?
I was thinking that if we knew everything, we wouldn't be able to handle it. And so part of our, at least for me anyway, part of existing and going day to day is limiting. Well, I don't deliberately limit what I learn, but I think that if I know that if I learn too much about the suffering in the world, I get very, very upset and can't function. So I think some of us have to only absorb as much truth as we can handle.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's powerful. That certainly resonates with me. Others? Harry, did I see your hand earlier?
You're muted.
You're on mute.
When you think about truth, it's never ending in the sense that we're always searching for truth. And certain things that we think are true turn out to be not true. The world is flat. We find out, no, the world is not flat. The world, the sun goes around the earth. No, the earth goes around the sun. But in those times, they were handed as truth. So truth is everlasting, and we're always seeking, and it's part of life and growing. So I guess
Thank you, Harry.
Look at truth.
That reminds me of a talk I saw, back when I was a scientist and a graduate student, where there was a talk by Stanley Prusner, who eventually won the Nobel Prize for discovering prions. And he was ridiculed for about 15 years for what he did. And the greatest minds in the world, these most brilliant people in the world, there's no way things were like that, and he stuck with it, and these are people who were dedicated to uncovering the mysteries of the universe. But he proposed something that was so outside of the realm of experience, even for people who were trying to figure out esoteric stuff, that he really took a lot of heat. So, yeah, there's a certain amount of importance of having some humility about what we don't know and continuing to strive and being tolerant. God, I remember I did this one experiment. I was sure it was going to work. And I just remember it was about 2 a.m. and I was, it was maybe 27, 26. And I was like screaming, I was wrong! In an empty building. Yes.
I think that the God did an amazing job creating this, because look how it was designed, the way I see it. That there are the atoms, they are certain thing, and we never saw one proton, one electron, all of that, because the photons are much bigger. So they will never chance to see an electron because it's so much smaller than a photon. That doesn't mean we don't know how to make computers and how to make things work. I think so that's our limitation. Keep searching and getting closer and closer how to make this work. But we will never get it there, but we'll never stop either.
We will never stop either. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to that the second bullet. Maybe we have someone to read that. Maybe someone we haven't heard from yet today.
Yeah, I'll read. Moses applies truth, whole picture awareness. When he reports to Jethro, he does not whitewash the history. He mentions the hardships before sharing the story of deliverance.
Thank you. Okay, so what does Rabbi Glass mean by whole picture awareness?
To me, it would mean the positives and the negatives.
Yeah. So first we have this dichotomy between what we can see and what we don't see. And now we have this dichotomy of, well, there are positives and negatives. And it almost makes me wonder, you know, I can imagine sometimes we have hidden negatives and sometimes we have hidden positives.
Well, and to me, even without putting a value on anything, you don't want to just pull out one part to focus on. You want to see how it is in the context of everything, or you're distorting reality.
Yeah, thank you.
What about if you're a doctor and the patient wants to know what are the odds of this particular procedure? And you say to the person, I'm not a doctor, of course, but well, in 80% of the cases it's going to work, but there's always that 20% chance. So, you know, that's the way I see it with the Moses situation, that there's always a chance that things can go awry.
Thank you, Janet. Yeah. Eileen.
I think one of the certainties is you can never escape uncertainty. And that's like the doctor. There's always uncertainty in everything you do.
Yeah.
And something could be true in the past, not in the present, but true in the future.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story a friend of mine told me where she had to get a medical procedure and she was really worried about this one possible side effect. And she's like, well, is it going to happen to me? And, you know, I have this thing which might make it more likely. And the doctor's like, well, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I've seen it happen with people who have that, and I've seen it happen with people who don't have that. And it was, you know, really, really tough for her not to know. And it is really hard dealing with uncertainty, as we're all experiencing right now. Well, that, I think, brings us, we're going to do our discussion early today. So we'll split into groups again. And so, you know, maybe just taking a point to look at that whole situation awareness. And I want you to really start to think about that. Like, what is the whole truth of where you are? And I think it's really important, you know, maybe looking ahead to gratitude a little bit, which is recognizing the good. But I think it's very important for us to, you know, for all, you know, the political and climate and, you know, pandemic and economic, there's a lot of challenges, but there are also some good things I hope that we can all find in our own lives. So maybe just do some thinking about that while I open the Oops, that's not where I want to go. I want to go to the breakout rooms. Okay, so the rooms are open. So just click the join room. That should put you in. Rick, are you going to join today?
I'm not. Thank you for double checking.
Okay, how about you, Kina? Are you going to?
I've been away and I can't even think of these things. So I'm too embarrassed to be in a group. So, I mean, if Rick needs a partner, I'll be his partner.
Well, I know Frank and Linda are sort of looking for a partner. That's for your.
Or a third one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll hit join then.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So we may or may not go to our breakout groups again. I would say probably not, but we possibly could. I'm curious to hear sort of what came up in the discussions about sort of the full truth of where you are. Would anyone care to share?
Well, my truth is I've been so divorced from everything until the election was over that I'm having trouble concentrating, and in our group we ended up debating flat earthers versus scientists, and my question was, are we allowed to call them liars because they're lying? But how do you ever get someone to see a real truth when they want to adamantly believe, more than believe, have conviction, total conviction that they are right, even when faced with scientific or any other kind of evidence? What happens with that? When do we ever get that? How do we tell them what liars they are and get them to see the error of their ways? Anyway.
Yeah, well, I think that's I definitely can hear kind of the frustration and the pain in your voice, because there are sometimes, these are people which we may randomly encounter on Facebook or read about in the news, and sometimes maybe they're people we know really well. And so I guess the first question I would ask, and I'm not saying this to be flippant, but why do you want them to know the truth so badly?
Well, my answer to that was, I don't care. I wouldn't care if it weren't so dangerous to allow lies to be propagated. Because if we're not going to protect truth, who else will? And that's a downfall of civilizations, to just, oh, they're not hurting me, I'll just let it go.
Yeah, that is, so we might feel motivated, like, hey, we want to stand up for the truth. We want to stand up for civilization. And yeah, that's a really important point, because civilization is built on the truth. And so, I guess the question, again, is, what is our right response? And that's, I think, is this a time that we need to say something, and how adamantly? And is it about, one way that I think about this, and again, this is my opinion, is I don't necessarily need to convince somebody that they're wrong, but I need to make sure that they don't have power. They don't have influence over other people. And, you know, so if you want to kind of sit in the corner and think that stuff, that's fine. But it's when you have, like there was someone who early in COVID, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he was like on the planning commission in some small town sort of across the bay. And he made this statement like, well, I think it's better to just let COVID rampage and evolution will take its course, and you know the people who are weaker will die off, and it's going to take care of a lot of our overcrowding problems. And you know, but he was forced to resign. And he's like, "What? I was just telling the truth. That's just what I believe." And my action was, "Yeah, well, thank you for being honest, but I don't want you in power deciding what buildings get built, even in a small thing like the Planning Commission. That's a huge job in a community, and I don't want someone with those kind of views holding public office." And that was how a lot of other people felt. So, yeah, so you're entitled to that, but you're not entitled to a position of power. You know, maybe you'll get one and you don't deserve it, or maybe you'll get one and because other people disagree with me and think that you should have it. But that, in my mind, that's the real issue, is who has power. Other thoughts?
When we were talking about along this line, you know, people who don't believe there's a pandemic and won't wear a mask and all this. And I was saying that one of the things I heard was, you know, I mean, there's one opinion that the most frail people should get the vaccination first. But another thing I heard is the spreaders, the people who are spreading this should be getting the vaccination first, so they can't spread it anymore. And that made a lot of sense to me, you know, because you may not be able to convince people that there's a pandemic, but there is. And, you know, smarter people can, you know, say your kid can't go to school unless they're vaccinated, and you're going to lose your job if you're not vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
You know,
so
reality.
yeah, so the question is, what's the truth? Who should get the vaccine? Is there a truth to that situation? Is there a right answer? Yeah, Harry?
Now, I have a quote that I heard that I kept handy. It just came to me about truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think this might answer some of the questions if you believe what I'm just about to say.
Okay.
It's always easier to want to believe in something than to say it was never true. It's always easier to want to believe in something. Than it is to say it was never true. So if there's this emotional connection about belief and maybe wanting it to be true, which is easier, well, so which is easier to say it was never true. So you have this blockage that's keeping you from the truth because of this belief. So belief is stronger than truth.
Thank you. I think that is something that I believe to be true. It's what a professor of mine called someone's psychical reality. It's like they see the world in a certain way, and so that's like their reality, and they're not going to change that. But I want to bring this back to our own personal reality, because did anyone have an insight about maybe part of their truth that maybe something was a little better than they thought it was? Or did everyone just go into the politics of which is okay? There's no right or wrong answers, but of course, on our Mussar journey, our opportunity for yes, Gail.
Yeah, when I searched my soul after you posted the question, I realized in my little microcosm, things are good. Except for the fact that I'm locked away and not another human being has touched me in 10 months. But, other than that, things are basically good in my everyday life. I go about my business and I do my things, and, it's just when I start looking outside my little bubble that some of the ugliness comes in, but it's not really that bad, my everyday private life. There's still good things happening.
Thank you, Gail. That's very powerful. And I think sometimes we might forget. But yeah, my bubble is okay today. Carol.
Yeah, my bubble's sort of okay. as most of you know, I'm in deep isolation. I'm probably the most isolated person around. But I got to thinking about how much I appreciate the fact that I can be. I can stay home. I don't have to go out except to go for my medical visits. That I always have to do. Or to, go to the mailbox and drop in a letter or something. I don't have to go anywhere because I can get things transported in. I've had help from friends, but also we have all these delivery services now. The mail still comes. The UPS still plops my Target orders at my door. I don't have to go out to get my medications. Those all get delivered. Now, how fortunate is that? Yeah, it sucks that I haven't been touched by another human being and I can't even remember how long. I haven't even touched another critter since the middle of March. But I don't have to. And that ups my chance of survival through this very scary time by quite a lot. Because if I had to go out and do all of those things, the chances of my catching the disease are very, very high. And the chances of my surviving it are very low. So I have a lot of gratitude for those things. Those people that come to my door and bring me the stuff I not only need, but sometimes it's just something, gee, I want that. Delivery today with some chocolate chip cookies. Now I don't need those, but they sure are nice. There's, even though my truth sounds harsh because of the isolation, and I will be alone on Thanksgiving because I don't have anybody to come and visit with me. If somebody wants to call or Zoom or whatever, that's cool. But if they don't, that's okay too, because I have what I need and I will entertain myself. I'm very good at doing that. And I think I've probably gotten better over time. But so I have a lot of room for, that's my truth is, I have enough. I have enough money. I'm not poor. My house has kind of fallen down in places, but it works. All my appliances work. The electricity works. My computer works. And one of the truths is that one of the things, and Greg, you're part of this. So one of the things that has kept me looped into the rest of the world is Judaism through Betham, my God. I participate in a number of classes and meetings. I participate in a Jewish choir. And yeah, we can't sing together, but we meet together. I participate in an interfaith group. These things keep me tied into reality, into the world, and that is my reality, and that is my truth.
Thank
so,
you.
Betham, everybody, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to echo one thing which really struck me is when you said, I have enough. When we can really say, okay, I have enough, and really mean it. And even if we don't mean it, we can say it till we mean it. Carrie, one more comment, then I have another text I'd like to share.
I'm fine. I'm okay with this whole isolation thing and everything. But so my truth, my day-to-day existence is very, very good. But my daughter's is not. She's a teacher. And she has to go out every day. And that truth, that my daughter is at risk every day, is very, very hard to deal with. And I have a friend who's a nurse and so forth. So even though our existence, we're fine, we have everything we need, so forth and so on. I don't know how to, I'm doing everything I can to help my daughter within safety limits. They're very concerned that they're going to get us sick. So it's on the one hand, everything's wonderful, and on the other hand, it's really, really scary in the family. So that's our truth.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for sharing that. And that sort of reminded me of part of my truth is like this week, one of the things I realized like yesterday, I was really, really afraid. It was just, I got triggered by a couple of things, and I was like, wow, I'm just feeling a lot of fear in my body. And that's kind of where I was, very intensely yesterday. Janos.
You know what? I want to carry what you said actually touched me, because I realized that listening to you how much that touch is needed in society. I have 2 grandkids, a 4-year-old boy and one 18-month-old granddaughter. And when they see me, the happiness on their face, and when they hug me, you know what? I'm risking my life because I had a aneurysm surgery on my main heart was replaced with a hose. And you know what? Yesterday I said, you know what? That's it. We picked them up from a school, and you should have seen these tiny faces and the eyes. They grew onto me. They would not let go. They would not let go. I had to carry both of them, and they just hold on. Then I'm thinking, is it the truth for me is that the fear is less than the love, and that's, yeah.
Thank you, Janos. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I'm going to see if we have time. I'm going to see if I can throw another ripple into this conversation. And I've never taught these 2 texts together, so I'm curious where this will bring us. So volunteer to read the first one, please.
It is forbidden. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah. It is forbidden to accustom oneself to smooth speech and flatteries. One must not say one thing and mean another. Inward and outward self should correspond. Only what we have in mind should we utter with the mouth. We must deceive no one, not even an idolater. Even a single word of flattery or deception is forbidden. A person should always cherish truthful speech, an upright spirit, and a pure heart, freed of all pretense and cunning. Maimonides.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so what is Maimonides, what is he teaching us here?
Greg, the first thing that comes to my mind is my father, who's 101, or will be 101 in February, would always say what was on his mind, but it wasn't always nice. And it wasn't, and many times it was hurtful. So I know that's not what this is about, but that's what popped into my head, because he should have never said half the things that came into his mind.
And I had a positive reaction. I had a positive reaction to this because it reminds me of my ex-husband, who had no agenda ever, and it made me realize how much we all manipulate one another with what we say and how we say it and everything, because he never did. He literally, he was an absolutely straight shooter. He just said things factually and not trying to achieve any purpose. He never paid compliments to people, which is kind of hard when you're his wife, because he thought that was like playing a head game and you just have to tell exactly what you're thinking. And it wasn't unkind, it just was completely without guile. And that was one thing I really did admire about him.
Great, thank you, Gail. So we had 2 different pictures, one is, because this says, this stakes out a very, solid position. And on the one hand, from Gail, we're like, okay, it was kind of nice to deal with someone who didn't have any guile, but Maimonides doesn't ever say you should always say what's on your mind. He just says you shouldn't say something which is in conflict with which is what's on your mind. And that's where I think the very important lesson that Carrie brings up. And I was like the total, when I moved, I was like, hey, if I see it, that's the way I'm going to call it. If you can't handle it, that's your problem. And that is a very, led me to be really unkind to people, and needlessly so. I guess, yes.
I think it's really important that it says that the outward and the inward should correspond. Otherwise, there's a dissonance within your own spirit that is disturbed. I don't know how else to say that. I don't know if that makes sense. But I thought that was really significant. You should, and we see so much phoniness, okay? We really do.
Yeah. I think that is for me, the most interesting kind of line in there. This outward and inward should correspond. And certainly phoniness is a drag, and that is very destructive. But let's have another volunteer to read the second one and see how that might relate to this idea of the outward and the inward corresponding.
I'll be happy to read it. Rabbi Jill Maderer explores a circumstance when a lie to an employer had a positive outcome. A single mother of two and recent law school graduate told her boss at a high-powered law firm that she did not work on Shabbat, when in fact she had never observed Shabbat in her life. She told this lie in order to ensure that she had time to spend with her kids in the face of the 90-hour-a-week expectation for new associates. Interesting.
So, okay, so what is people's reaction to this? I discussed it a little more in the book, which maybe one of you looked at, but what do we make of this situation? And in her article, it went on to say that for like the next 30 years, she kept Shabbat every week.
Right, I think it's great. I mean, I had a similar experience. I didn't have to lie, but I was in a very stressful job at the Internal Revenue Service. And a few times they asked us to come in on a Saturday. And every time I'd come in, first of all, another person who came in didn't come in Monday. So that made that horrible. And I felt horrible. And finally I decided, screw it, I'm going to observe Shabbat so it was great because like every fall I could leave early on Friday because, the days are shorter and I've also been at Shabbat observant since then, more and more, to the letter, though I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty Shomer Shabbos on most things, and the few times that I have broken it, I felt bad, and it's just become a way of life. Anyway, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
It seems to me that she upheld the spirit of Sabbath, which to me is more valuable than anything. It reminds me, my brother worked in the New York subway system, and he would always make sure that the authorities knew about the Jewish holidays. He never practiced it, but he felt that the other workers would not have he had lots of guts, and so he protected the other workers, and I really appreciated that.
Also, what does that mean to keep Shabbat? I mean, it means different things for different people. For some people, it might mean I don't go any place except to be with my family. That might mean, it doesn't necessarily mean you go to synagogue, but you don't work.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Carol, and thank you, Frank, because it can mean different things. But for her, I think she had always worked on Shabbat, but then she was claiming she didn't. And I'm wondering, what do we think might have been going on with her outer and inner world? What was true and what wasn't true? Yeah, Carrie.
She realized that family was more important
Mm.
than the job, and the job may have been her most important truth for many years, but the realization that she would have to choose became a new truth. So this was a way of honoring that new truth by telling a lie. But
Mm. Thank you, Harry.
Yeah, well, I think she fell into a potential trap because Shabbos is just Saturday. What about Sunday? Because he could say, okay,
Come on Sunday.
Saturday off, but we're open on Sunday.
Okay, well, I hear that, but we don't know how that played out. But I'd
But
like
I'm
us
just
to think
saying,
about.
yeah.
I'd like us to as we wrap up and we go into our closing meditation. I think Carrie really said something profound, which is she recognized the deeper truth.
Mm.
I think the way Rabbi Matter sort of framed it was almost like she spoke a new truth into being. She connected with a deeper truth. Shabbat is a truth that's deeper and there for all of us, that we can always kind of tap into. Or prioritizing family and prioritizing people, she changed the rules where she said, hey, your rule in the workplace is you need to be here and you need to be putting in all this time. And she said, you know what, my deeper truth is there's something bigger than that time. And I need to carve out a time when, she probably did have to work on Sundays. But the reality was, if she hadn't done that, she would have been working Saturday and Sunday, having used to work 90 hours a week and been a workaholic. And I did work 7 days a week. And going from 7 to 6 days is a huge difference. And a huge difference for her kids and her family. So as we settle in and close our eyes, just think about what is that deeper truth that maybe you'd like to breathe some additional life into. What is an inner truth that isn't manifesting itself in your outer world? What might you do to close that gap? Just one small action you can take. To bring some of your deepest priorities and deepest truths just a little bit more into your life. Now let us all take a moment of gratitude to recognize the truth of what we are building together here during these times and during our weekly gatherings, being together. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. It is wonderful to spend this time with you every week. Wishing you the best. Next week is Thanksgiving, so we will take the day off. I will probably send out an email, like a Thanksgiving sort of email anyway, but we get an extra week to percolate on the truths, and may we breathe the truth of a better, more loving, more peaceful world into existence.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.